So this recipe is to demo how to make my buffalo chicken dip from the Possible Diet. This is a dip that I made a lot during the holidays because it's high vegetable, low carb, high protein. It's probably not super low fat, but it's low fat enough for me to feel comfortable with on my diet. And I would bring this recipe to any potluck that I went to with bell pepper chips. And that way I could have something that I could sort of like stand next to and, you know, eat at my leisure. Because what my habit is, I know they always tell you like, don't stand near the food when you're at a potluck, like that's the worst place to be. But if you find yourself talking to someone and they want to go get something to eat, you can go eat the stuff you brought. Instead of what I normally do, which is position myself near the spinach artichoke dip and a giant loaf of French bread. So this is a great alternative to that. And another thing I want to talk about in this video is how to make things easier on yourself. This recipe calls for a lot of dicing, and the things that you dice, red onion, carrots, and celery, all go in the same pan. So if you don't feel like slicing, if slicing is not a meditative thing for you, just put it in a food processor until it's roughly chopped. That's what I'm going to do with these. And I'm just going to use these carrots rather than whole carrots because I just need it to be easy. This is also an example of how when I buy something, I'll use it for a recipe and then I'll use it as a snack. That's why vegetables are so awesome. So I'm going to save this celery to dip into this dip or into my fry sauce during the week for a snack. But then the other half of the recipe, or the other half of the celery is going to go in this recipe. So make things easy on yourself. You don't have to sacrifice flavor to be on a diet. It's okay. It's possible. Thanks. Okay, so I've got my butter browning all up in here. You don't have to brown the butter. It's just browning because I'm cooking it too high, too long. You want to add those vegetables in here. And you see, they're all kind of like uniformly the same size. They're all going in the same dish. 4 tablespoons of butter seems like a lot, but for this much vegetables, it's actually not that bad. You really want that butter flavor because this is a buffalo chicken dip. We're gonna add our garlic. Probably should have added the garlic when you did the butter. Sorry. I eyeball this. It's 4 cloves of garlic minced, which is sort of like, that's like 1 clove, 2, 3, that's about 4. That'll do it. Mix it all up in there good. These save my life. They make it so easy. It smells good. And it doesn't say it in the recipe, but whenever I'm sauteing vegetables, I like to just give them a grind of salt and pepper, kind of like a once-over. Let them release their flavors. Helps them loosen up. So you want to cook these until they're like a little bit soft. And then we're going to get a half a cup of chicken broth. I'm using bone broth. You can use whatever broth you have in your fridge. It'll be fine. Measure this from the reverse. I'm not going to open up a whole chicken broth for one recipe when I have bone broth sitting in my fridge. Bone broth is actually something really good to drink on, like, if you're cold. It has, you know, minimal calories with a lot of protein. And it has things like collagen, which help Build your muscles and skin and connective tissue. So pick up some bone broth. We're going to heat this all the way through until it's hot. Then we're going to add the bone broth. We're going to remove it from the heat, stir in the cream cheese until it's kind of like melted and all one thing together. Then we're going to add the yogurt, mustard powder, parsley, diced peppers, and Frank's hot sauce. So I'll meet you in 2 shakes. Okay, so now my vegetables they're nice and soft. I'm going to add my chicken broth or bone broth. If you have bone broth, give it a stir. Let it all heat up. I'm going to turn off the heat and then add my cream cheese. I use Neufchâtel cheese, which has lower fat than regular cream cheese. I find in this recipe, you can't tell the difference. It tastes just as good. So stir in the cream cheese into this mixture. It's going to take some time. Always have your cream cheese at room temperature. It makes it easier. And then you're not like trying to melt down small pieces of cream cheese that are cold. Okay. So our cream cheese is pretty much blended in. I'm going to take a quick break since this is my only filming area and let this stove cool down, and then I'll show you how to do the rest of the recipe. Okay, so we have our cream cheese, vegetable, chicken broth mixture. We're going to just dump it in this giant bowl. We're going to add the Greek yogurt, a 1/4 cup of Siggi's. Again, you can use Greek yogurt. I use Siggi's Icelandic non-fat. It really doesn't matter. Use whatever you like, but I really like Siggi's. Mustard powder. I find the mustard powder gives it like just a little bit of a bite that's really nice. Parsley. This is handy because I know it's always 2 tablespoons. Diced bell peppers. We don't want to overcook the diced bell peppers. That's why I add them now instead of sauteing them with the other stuff. Hot sauce. I use Frank's because it has 0 calories, but if you can find a low calorie, low carb one, you can use that instead. Now, in this I use sort of pre-roasted cauliflower. It's 2 cups of cauliflower, but I find that if you don't pre-roast it, it doesn't cook all the way through. It doesn't disappear into the dip, which is one of the really nice things about cauliflower. You can put it in just about anything to take up space and add vegetable value and fiber and nutrients. It has almost no flavor, and it tends to take on whatever flavor you give it. So I put roasted cauliflower and cauliflower rice in a lot of things. You want this to be chunky. The ideal cauliflower piece is, maybe about that big, maybe a little bit smaller. But it doesn't have to be perfect. And then you want to add your chicken, which is, I think it's 2 cups of chicken. This is our rotisserie chicken. It's pre-cooked. You could just get this at Safeway or Whole Foods or Costco. whatever you like. I like these Siggi's containers too, because they're about 2.5, almost 3 cups. Give this all a good stir. It's nice and spicy. I love it. The key is that you want to eat things that have a lot of vegetables, a lot of protein, and a lot of flavor. And things like mustard or hot sauce or vinegar, they kick everything up a little bit of a notch, and they make food that is normally like diet food taste really good. I've brought this to parties and people are like, that's really delicious. Now we have to add the cheese, and it's over there. So this recipe says shredded cheddar cheese. I like mild cheddar and Monterey Jack too. You just want to use half of it. This is 2 cups, so yeah. Use about half the package. I'm not even going to measure it because I'm pretty good at eyeballing portions after a year of dieting, let me tell you. This is what you're going to put on the top of your pan. So leave enough to sprinkle on the top. Oops. Preheat your oven. Again, you can make this in the toaster oven. I love anything you can make in a toaster oven as a win for me. It's gonna look like that. I'm gonna put it in this pan. It's gonna be a tight fit, but we're gonna try. Okay, so this is our buffalo chicken dip. We're gonna top it with the rest of this cheese. The recipe also calls for blue cheese and green onions, but we're gonna put those on last and then broil them at the very, very end. The green onions are great fresh, and the blue cheese is great when it's like just barely melted. So we're gonna use the heat of the casserole to melt the cream cheese and melt the blue cheese. And that way the green onions stay fresh instead of turning brown. So pop this in. I love this toaster oven. I'll see you in 15 minutes. Okay, so our buffalo chicken dip is done. I'm gonna take it out of this oven. Looks amazing. Look at how delicious that looks. And it smells so good. I wish you could smell it. So all you want to do when it's fresh out of the oven is sprinkle a little blue cheese on top. If you don't like blue cheese, that's okay. You don't have to add it. I like it. It kind of grew on me over time. Some people are like, it's disgusting. It tastes like mold. But I actually had blue cheese with a beefsteak tomato and a ribeye at this super fancy restaurant once. And it sold me on it. And then your green onions. Again, you don't want to bake this on. The heat of the casserole is going to melt that blue cheese real nice. And then the green onions will stay fresh. If you're bringing this to a party, bring the blue cheese and green onions with you and put the toppings on it right when you get there. And again, I eat these with bell pepper chips because they're way, way lower in carbs than pita chips. But if people like pita chips and they're not on a diet at the party, this is really good with those too. But I find that bell pepper chips, even carrot chips, if you want to go through the trouble of slicing carrot chips, or you can buy them in the store, but bell pepper chips go really nice with this. So I'm gonna taste it, even though it's super hot. It's probably gonna burn my tongue. Ooh, ooh, look at that, it looks really good. Mmm. That's pretty delicious. Thanks.